Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Dave's Tackle Box. It's 9 o'clock on Sunday, the 9th of September 2012. We're well and truly into September. And we're only 6 days, therefore, away from Irish Vape Fest, but more on that in a bit. We've got quite a lot to cram in tonight's show. We've got some VT, we've got Dugie joining us later. And the first VT I'm going to show you, which will be in a few minutes' time, is something I promised I would review this for you guys. This is the BOSQ 18650 funny shaped wooden mod. So I've done a little review of that, and we're going to look at that in sort of part 1. In part 2, I'm going to show you something that I've going to start on this week, and the subject is rebuildables. Lots of rebuildables about at the moment. Lots of talk about rebuildables. Are they worth the hassle? Aren't they? Are they better than bought atomizers and cartomizers, or aren't they? I can't answer all those questions, but you can have a laugh at me trying to make them work. So I'm doing like a little sort of mini series, which I'll probably sort of embed on the Vapor Trails website once we finish broadcasting them, and I've kind of loosely called it Rebuildables for Dummies by a Dummy, which I think is probably quite appropriate. And because I'm not the only person on the Vapor Trails team who's sort of started to get their head turned a little bit by all these fancy faffy rebuildable things at the moment, I shall be joined by Dugie later in the show, and we're going to swap notes and just have a little chat about, you know, where we think they're going and what it's all about. So that's quite a lot to squeeze into an hour-long show. Before we actually do that, I'm going to play a little sting, and then I'm going to do my little thing about vape meats, because I said I would, and I meant it. Too many things to click. See that there? There. See? vapefestireland.weebly.com. It says there. That is the website for Vapefest Ireland, obviously, but it's 6 days away. Next time I'm sitting here, I'm going to be telling you how good it was. That's assuming I make it. I just got to flick to my other screen here. I want to get this right. It's next Saturday, the 15th of September 2012, at a place called Abbyleaks. And I did actually have the name of the hotel there. If you go to that website that's on screen, you can see everything. It's from 11 AM till late at night. There's like millions of people going to be there from all over the world, and loads of raffle prizes and everything. And me and the Hi-Fi Stud are going to be there. And I hope I have better luck in the Vapefest Ireland raffle than I did in the Vapefest UK raffle. But I'm not going to bitch about that anymore. I'm not that bitter, honest. It's the Abbyleaks Manor Hotel, which is right in the middle of the Republic of Ireland. It's going to be an hour and a bit's drive down from Dublin, where I shall be meeting up with Dave Dunn and driving down next Saturday morning. I can't wait. I'm excited. It's going to be fun. I've even brought a new camera bag, especially for the occasion, that I can get a few e-cigs and all my camera gear in. So I'll be taking camera along and seeing if we can interview some people and give you a flavour of the day. And this time I won't be drinking because I've got to drive the car. So there's a good chance that some of the footage will be actually watchable, unlike the Vapefest UK video this year, but that's enough of that. One more thing I want to mention as well, and so I really push for time. Saturday the 13th of October, we've got another meet going on here in the UK. This is the North East E-Smokers Knees Up, and I know you've seen this before, but you're going to see it again. A little trailer for that. So for more details on the Knees Up on the 13th of October, you just want to go to forum.vaportrails.tv. It's where you're probably watching this, but just change the www to forum when I finish, because that'd be rude to go and look now. Look after the show. But forum.vaportrails.tv, you'll find a thread on there where you can ask any questions, and the people who've organised it will be able to answer them for you. But without further ado, we've got to move on. I was going to play a sting there, but this is how jam-packed tonight's show is. We're going to get straight on with it. At Vapefest UK 2012, I met a guy called Chris, and Chris runs a company called Brit Vapes, and he showed me this mod. In fact, I actually went to him. I said, "What's that? That looks really good," and I was quite taken with it. And he gave me one to review, and here's the review. This is what I think of it. It's called the BOSQ. Enjoy. Hi, I'm Dave. Now, a couple of weeks ago, I attended Vapefest UK 2012 in Tamworth. That's in England. And as you would expect, there were a lot of the UK well-known vendors there displaying their wares. And I got speaking with a guy called Chris, who runs a company called Brit Vapes. And I'll stick their website address on the bottom of the screen. And Chris was proudly showing off, amongst other things, the mod, not the tank. We'll get to that. The mod here. This is an 18650 handcrafted wooden mod, which is a really unusual shape, as you can see. It's called the BOSQ. A BOSQ, it's spelt. But as I say, I got talking to Chris about the mod, and well, this is what he had to say.
So I'm sitting here with Chris, who's about to show me a mod which is slightly unusually shaped. Chris, what is it?
We've got 4 woods, although we're going to have more at some point. So that's utility, which is light mahogany, and then we've got walnut, oak, and beech.
That looks lovely, that does, the walnut.
Yeah.
It's the BOSQ, yeah, B-O-S-Q.
BOSQ.
Yeah.
And
okay.
it's a guy who makes cabinets, but he also makes guitars, so it's perfectly suited to making a mod.
Yeah, yeah.
And then you basically, well, you probably use a coin, but in here is an 186. So I'm not going to screw it because I can actually show you it working. But basically, there's a chamber in there to take an 18650,
right.
And there's a horn switch on there, and then.
And it just sort of works.
It just sort of works, nice and simple. But you feel that it's nice in the hand.
It is lovely, that is.
And actually, you can use it either way, and it's all right. So
I love the inlay there.
yeah.
Just get that up to the camera. There's a sort of inlaid bit.
But obviously, because we're like with Brit Vapes, it's nice to actually make a mod as well and experience the journey.
Yeah, absolutely.
Of making one. So and the guy who made them can also work with plastics and resins and possibly metal as well. So
right,
the future could be very exciting.
Well,
so, yeah.
thanks very much.
Yeah, lovely. Cheers.
Cheers, Chris.
All right, nice.
Well, that's what Chris had to say about it. But let's take a closer look. So the first thing you notice when you look at the BOSQ is the wood grain. The guy who makes them, and I saw the name Fenwick associated with it, clearly goes to some trouble to pick the wood that he uses for each mod, because I think you'll agree, I think this one's the walnut. It looks like walnut, but they do a variety of different finishes, including utility, oak, walnut, which I believe this is, and beech. They all look stunning. This, I think, was my favourite. As I say, the first thing you notice is the striking pattern in the grain on both sides. You can see there's just as I think possibly for where he's fitted the internal workings of the switch, there's a segment there, and I think that looks nice as a design feature in its own right, to be honest with you. I think it looks lovely. You can't tell by running your finger over that it's there. It really is beautifully finished, and it looks good. And I'd say that's probably the first thing that I noticed when I saw them on a table in that big tent at Vape Fest. I thought, ooh, they look nice. But then as I sort of homed in on them, I noticed the second most striking feature, which is the shape. I can't help thinking I should have two of these so I could fit them together, but maybe the button would get in the way, sort of yin and yang. But it is a really unusual shape. Now, I've got to say, when I realised the shape of it, I thought, well, that's different. I like the look of that. But I straight away wondered, actually, how comfortable is that to use? I can tell you, in my right hand, that is incredibly comfortable to hold. To use the switch there, it's some kind of plastic exterior on the switch. We'll have a look at what we can see of the internals in a minute. But it's very comfortable, very comfortable. So as you do when you've got a mod like this in your hand, you start thinking, well, how many different ways is this operable? And actually, that looks awkward, but that's not bad either. Right or left hand, front switch at the front or back. It's actually quite comfortable in all cases, I think. But I have to say that I like the fact that I'm right-handed and can hold it like this. This is the way I've been tending to pick it up and use it. Left hand is doable. I think right hand's slightly more comfortable. Doesn't it look lovely? One of the things I noticed about this as well, obviously when you're dealing with wooden mods, they're all going to be slightly different to each other. You're not going to get two the same because the grain and the pattern's going to be different. But one thing I did notice about there must have been about 10, maybe a dozen on the table when I looked, and they're crafted with some pretty sort of fine tolerances. They were all very similar. I mean, as far to the naked eye, they were identical in terms of the shape and the size. So they've been consistently handcrafted. The 510 connector, as you can see, is almost flush on the top. I noticed on the BritVape's website they actually describe it as flush. It's not quite. I'd say there's about 0.5 mil showing there, which of course you need for airflow. It's got the usual sort of 510 connector with the little cutouts for airflow. If that was sunk down and you put a cartomizer or your atomizer on top, then you wouldn't get any airflow. So by necessity it's raised. I'd say about 0.5 mil would be my guess. You can run your finger over it without sort of really getting any sort of traction on it as you do it. It's as close to flush as you can go. Button, as I say, it's a plastic external section to the button, but it feels pretty strong, it feels chunky, it's definitely in the right place. The battery chamber. Okay, so you've got this sort of brass screw, the sort of thing that we're accustomed to seeing, which I've just used a penny piece there to get a grip. You can do it with your fingernail if you've got any. The threads are very well made. It came on and off really easy, and you see that's just an end cap. There's no spring because the spring is on the other end, and I shall attempt to shine some light down here and you'll be able to see the inside. You can see the spring at the bottom and the wiring there that goes up to the center post on the atomizer connector. Very neatly finished. It's been finished. You're not going to get splinters if you do that. It's very nicely finished. Don't advise you do that too much because the wiring is there, so you don't want to rip anything out. There's it looks like aluminium to me. Insert. So that should be pretty good and true and be pretty reliable. I don't see any problems there. Now mine's got a slight little defect in the wood there. Now I should point out that this was given to me. I didn't pay for it for the purposes of reviewing it for you guys. Maybe that's why I got given this one. There's a slight defect. It is concerning me not at all. You only notice it if you really go looking for it. Obviously it takes an 18650 size battery, and I've been using, because this is the first one that I picked up, it's an AW 2600 milliamp hour 18650 battery, and I've been putting it in positive end first. There's no sort of clever electronics in this mod. I don't think it's really going to matter. Put it in whichever way round you like. These are the nippleless batteries, so I've been putting it in so these little studs on the bottom make good contact with the end cap, but it shouldn't really matter electronically which way around it goes. You can see the spring is just about right to apply a bit of tension so it makes sure it makes contact with that bottom cap once the battery's in, and I'll get that going. I'm going to say, I mean that's in now actually, look, but because I've got no nails, I'm just going to make sure that's in reasonably tightly with the coin. But that's it, you know, you put your battery in and it's ready to go. This thing is called a unique tank. This didn't come from Britvapes. This came from a guy called Ashdog, and I'm going to mention these either in my show or in a review sometime because I'm quite taken with these. It's essentially a Carto tank, just a rather nice one. Screw that onto your 510 and that should work. And what do you know, it does. Let's have a look at it in action. Right, so we did the little sizzle test to check that it's firing. I'm sure you heard that. Let's give it a go. It works. It's basically like most of these mechanical 18650 mods, it's a battery chamber with a switch. So the things that matter are you getting a good connection and therefore a good flow of power to your atomizer connection, and the other thing that matters really is the quality of the switch. Now I've used this quite a bit in the last couple of weeks, and the switch hasn't failed me once yet. It doesn't feel as though it's going to fail me. I think that's pretty well made together. So I've been quite enjoying this mod. Obviously the vape that you get from it depends on what you're going to put on the back. There's nothing to stop you putting your latest and greatest rebuildable Genesis atomizer on there, or you can use a Carto tank or an atomizer, anything with a 510 connection basically. So it delivers power when you press the button, and it looks great while it's doing it. One more thing that's worthy of note as well is because it's got quite a wide base, even though it's a funny shape, it's as stable as anything when you put it down. It's a good desk mod. If you're working away at your computer or something like that, it's a good mod for putting down. So sort of in the same category as the Silver Bullet, but this one won't roll if you lie it on its side. Now, looking at the Britvape site this morning, they're actually out of stock of the BOSQ, unfortunately. It was selling at £55. I'd assume there's a bit of postage and packaging. As I say, I was given mine in order to do this review. At £55, that's pretty good for a bit of craftsmanship, and it is a nice piece of craftsmanship. I think it's quite a nice mod myself. Your mileage may vary, as they say, but I like it. So thanks for watching. So that was the BOSQ, available from britvapes.co.uk, except it isn't at the moment because they've sold out, but I'll bet you will get some more because they didn't hang around long. And I'm not surprised, it's a nice piece of work. It's a nice mod. And, well, I'm sitting here debating whether to run a competition for this mod, because much as I like it, I've got so many mods now that I like, but I don't use regularly, there's half a chance that this will be a prize in a competition on Dave's tackle box in the coming weeks when I organise something. But there you go. Let's take our first commercial break. See you in 2 minutes.
Cloud9 Vaping, sponsors of Dave's Tackle Box. Cloud9 Vaping, sponsors of Dave's Tackle Box.
And we're running late already tonight. I knew there was a lot to squeeze into this show, so without further ado, let me present to you episode 1 of Rebuildables for Dummies by a Dummy. And here it is. Hi there, I'm Dave. The purpose of this little series of videos on rebuildable atomizers is to try and demonstrate that you can do it if you want. I'm as guilty as anybody as having looked at rebuildables. I got my first rebuildable well over a year ago, had a little play with it. Wasn't really to my taste, found it a little bit too much hassle, and I really didn't bother with them until a few weeks ago, where I bought some of the newer sort of, I would say, better devices. And I've been playing around and I'm finding it a bit of fun. So the purpose of these videos really is to just show that anybody can do it. You know, hopefully these videos will give you a few little pointers, fill in a little bit of the gaps in some of the terminology if you've got any. At no point do I claim to be an expert or even basically proficient at some of the things that you'll see me doing. To a large extent, what you'll see in this little series of videos is me trying things for the first time and messing up and having another go. And that's kind of the moral of the story with Rebuildables, I think. So if you're an advanced user, been making coils for months, can do it blindfold, this probably isn't going to appeal to you much. But if you're curious about what everybody's talking about, hopefully this will be of some use to you. So I hope you enjoy it. these are two fairly basic and simple rebuildable atomizers. However, they're quite different in one sense. This is the Bully A2. Now, if you look on bully-smoke.de, bully-smoker.de at the moment, you'll see this listed as the A2 Classic atomizer, and they call it the Classic because it's the original design of the A2. They've subsequently made one which uses an e-cig type tank, a bit like this one. However, this was, as far as I know, this was the first repairable or rebuildable atomizer that was freely available ever, I think. There was a predecessor to this, the A1, but they're a bit of a rarity. They're certainly not available anymore. And at the time that I got this, which is sort of 15-16 months ago, and I got mine used off the classifieds on UK Vapors, that was pretty much your choice if you wanted to try a rebuildable. And I did try it, and a couple of months afterwards I put a video on YouTube showing my sort of ham-fisted attempts to make a wick. And whilst I would not sort of criticise the Bully Smoker in any way, shape or form, it wasn't to my preference. I'll tell you why. One, I don't like the use of a cartridge. Cartridges, even when you're making the wicks yourselves, don't seem to wick to an acceptable standard for me. The other thing I didn't like about it was the air intake hole here is actually quite big, and that makes for a very airy draw. A combination of that and the style of the cartridge made for a very airy draw, and that's not something I enjoy too much. I prefer quite a tight draw. But I'm not going to slate this in any way, shape or form. It's the oldest repairable atomizer still available on the market, and a lot of people, it's still their favourite. And they can't all be wrong, just not to my preference, but definitely a quality piece of kit. I was going to use this to demonstrate the principles of rebuildable atomizers and show you how to make a coil, but it's broke. For some reason I'm not getting power from the battery to the two terminals where you attach a coil, so this is actually at the moment a dead atomizer, which I shall get fixed or figure out what to do with. But for the purposes of this little review, this little video, I'm afraid it's no use to us. However, I have this. Now, I've not used this yet beyond just building a little coil there just to test before I film this. This is a Chinese made rebuildable atomizer. It's called the Ego Customizer, and I got it from healthyvape.co.uk. As you can see, this one uses the Tornado or Ego T style tanks. When you buy it new, it costs £12.99. You get the atomizer and some wick and some wire, which I'll show you in a minute. It comes with like a dummy tank cartridge. There's no cap on this, so it's not actually usable. So I had to dig around, and I've managed to find a I had to wash it out, it had liquid in it. But I managed to find the right size of tank, and these are the original Ego T tanks, and that seems to fit in there okay. So I think we're going to be all right with that. But just take that out, put it to one side. The principle with this is very similar to the Bully, but instead of using a cartridge, it uses the tank, and so you've got the little sort of customary spike arrangement for the tank that fits into the tank through the bottom. And if we take one more level off, you can see there's a coil that I made a very short while ago, but I'm going to remove and make another one to show you how easy it is to do. Now, in this sort of little sequence of videos that I'm going to do about rebuildables, at no point will you hear me claim to be any kind of expert or even claim to be any good at making coils. I'm fairly new to this. I'm still at the stage where if I make a coil that works for a couple of days, then I'm quite smug and content about that. There are much more expert people than me around. Many of them have done YouTube reviews and written on forums with tips and tricks. I'm just doing a very basic thing in the hope that you can see that having a go is the way to find out whether you can do this or not, and that really you shouldn't be intimidated by it in any way, shape or form, because it's a little bit intricate. It's a bigger deal than buying a pre-made atomizer and screwing it onto something, but actually this is kind of fun. So as well as the atomizer itself, I also got a little polythene bag from Healthy Vape when I ordered this, all for £12.99. I got the atomizer, and then you get this bag and you get a metre of fiberglass wick and a metre of resistance wire from which we'll make the coil. Now, what I figured out is that the coil, the wick, sorry, that came in the bag is a lot thicker than what arrived on the atomizer that was fitted in the factory, I assume. So I've kind of had to play around a bit and come up with a method that seems to work, and this is what I've come up with. A pair of scissors and cut off about a 2-inch piece, maybe a little bit more, but you know, it doesn't have to be too precise, but a couple of inches of this wick material, and fold it in half. Then pinching it fairly tightly, get a pin and hold that against the wick, so you've got something rigid that you can wind your coil around. Take the resistance wire that came with it, and this is 0.15 of a millimeter gauge. I guess I'm not sure what it is, probably nickel chrome wire. We're going to talk about NICR and Canthal wires in a later episode of this, but for now I'm just using the wire that came with it, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to make 4 tight turns around the pin and the wick as tightly as I can. 1, 2, 3, 4 complete turns, and hold it up there like that. So what I've got now is the pin, the wick, and my wire coiled around it like that. I pull it as tight as I can without snapping the wire, obviously, and then I'm going to cut the wire so there's about 1/2 inch on each tail, like that. Hopefully you can see it, but there's basically the 2 little bits, the 2 ends of the wire are about 1/2 inch protruding from the wick. Now I've unscrewed the little screw terminals here as far as quite a long way out. They're not quite falling out, but I found that the best way to connect this, the best way I found so far, is to put the ends of the little tails of the wire coil that you've made down inside them like that. That's certainly the way it arrived. It was the way it was connected up, and then push them in as far as they will, and then fold the coil so it's away from the screws. Screws this side, coil this side, and I'll show you why that is in a second. Now, holding the wire in place, you need to screw these terminals tighter than you might naturally think they should be tightened, and the reason for that is if they're not screwed in pretty much all the way, you can't put the next section of the atomizer onto the base. So they do need to be tightened pretty much as you can. we go. So that's the coil made and secured to the connections. I now very gently, carefully remove the pin. And there is a coil with some wick inside it. And give everything a good tighten again. Because now on the bully I would never recommend doing this, and on some of the other stuff that we're going to be looking at in the coming weeks I would not recommend torquing down on those screws like that. But with this one at least, yours might be different, but with mine, if I don't get this screw, especially on this outer on this connection here, if I don't get that screw all the way in, I just cannot get the top section on. So what I'm going to do now is just check it and see if the coil is actually working. So to do that, what I'm going to do is just drop a bit of juice onto the coil. Most of that mist went straight onto the table. That's what happens when you're looking at the camera instead of what you're doing. I just want to make sure that it's not totally dry. I'm not going to burn the hell out of this. I just want to see if basically I've made a good coil that will heat, and that's working. That's enough of a test for the moment. Now, because this is a tank atomizer, what I've done is I've left one of these ends loose, you see, so we've got a loose piece like that, and this is actually a bit easier said than done, but it can be done with a bit of patience. I'm just going to wet the end of that wick and make it fine a point as I can. I'm going to try and get it inside that spike, because I think that'll help with the wicking better when everything's assembled. And then it's a case of threading that so it goes inside that spike, shoving everything else up inside at the same time, so it's not actually totally easy to do, as you can see. But it can be done because I've done it already. There we go, I think that'll just about get it. Screw that together. Like that. And if you get it right, you can see that the wick is just poking up inside the little spike there. And there you go, you can prove that by just pulling that at a slight angle. You can see there's a little bit of wick there, and I think that's going to help get the juice from the tank down to the coil. So to get things going, I'm going to put another drop actually on that spike. I'm going to test it one more time now I've put it together, make sure I haven't disturbed the coil or caused a short. And you can probably hear that sizzling. And now based on that, I'm going to fill up this tank and see if it works. Okay, the Ego customizer comes with this little collar thing. There's no thread or anything on it, but it drops over the sort of cone thread of an Ego, and you can screw that on there. It looks a bit neater. It's a bit, you know, I suppose if you did your atomizer up tight enough it might stop that spinning round, but it's just cosmetic, it doesn't do much. But I'm going to actually use this on a Provari, for the simple reason that I'm interested to see what resistance coil I've made there, totally by accident. So I'm going to have a look, and that's telling me that I've got a dead battery. Let's try that again. No, I got a 2.9 ohm coil. So there you go. I mean, that's like a very cheap rebuildable atomizer. I'm noticing that the flavour's very degraded, as these tank systems tend to be. I mean, we built the coil ourselves, but the wicking issue is still going to be the same, and the flavour is definitely diminished. But as you can see, it's functioning. The next thing you do with the rebuildable atomizer is experiment as you make your coils. Experiment with the length of the wick, the thickness of the wick, the type of wire that you use, the number of coils in the wire that you use, until eventually you find what works for you. Now, you can't do that with a bought atomizer, and that's the big attraction for me. Technically it should be a lot cheaper than buying atomizers or cartomizers, but that's not the main attraction at all for me. It's the faffing around now and trying to make it better than the last one. I think that's the big appeal with these things. Now, this was very simple. I've said a couple of times throughout this video that I know that's not the neatest or the best coil you're ever going to see made. I did it in a bit of a hurry. It's the first time I've actually used this atomizer. I'm sitting here at the moment quite happy that I made it work without too much trauma. But next week we're going to take a look at this thing, which is called the steam machine, which takes this concept just a little bit further. And this is something I've been using rather a lot, and then as this little series of videos goes on, we'll start to look at things like Genesis atomizers as well. Until then, I hope you know that this is just, if you were thinking of trying one of these but were put off by how technically difficult it appears, it's not difficult. At worst, it's a little bit of trial and error. It's cheap, it's fun, you don't have to spend a lot of money to get started. I hope you found it useful. Thanks for watching.
Sponsors of Dave's Daveapos.
The GG. Because you want one.
iVapor and iVapor Elixir, based in Yorkshire, for your e-cig needs. That's ivapor.co.uk and ivapor-elixir.co.uk. iVapor and ivapor-elixir.co.uk, proud sponsors of vaportrails.tv.
Well, there you go. That was my first attempt at part 1, and that was kind of like the concept and the very basics of getting a rebuildable atomizer off the ground. And here it is. Look, it wasn't a fluke. It's still working almost 6 hours later. Flavour's not great. Those tanks never were good, renowned for their flavour. But you can see there, over my right shoulder, I got it right for a change. It's Doug. How you doing, Dougie?
I'm good, Dave. Good evening, everybody.
So, how's things, mate?
Yeah, good.
I can't help there but
really
notice.
Busy week, but yeah, good.
I can't help but notice there that you're using some kind of rebuildable atomizer.
I am. I'm using the. It goes under the name of the Big Dripper. Also from Healthy Vape. Yeah, I was sent it a few weeks ago. Really nice.
I remember you covered it on my show, didn't you?
I did. When I was away. Enjoying yourself.
I'm enjoying myself now. You know, I always enjoy myself. You know me. I was enjoying myself particularly. I'll grant you at that moment, but but yeah. So you're kind of. I get the feeling that you're kind of where I am with these rebuildables and sort of tinkering a bit and seeing what they're about. Is that fair?
Definitely, yeah. I mean, they've caught my eye over the last. It's probably only been a month or so since because I was sent one of the Ego customizers.
Yes.
That you've just looked at there.
I bought one. I just point that out.
I've been looking at all the reviews and everything of all these high-end stuff people have been putting out, and they were scary. The way you have to get them running and stuff. But there are simpler things out on the market, such as the Ego customizer. And then this one,
13 quid that cost me. 13 quid, and there's enough wire, even if you screw a few up to make a good half dozen, maybe more, maybe 10 coils, plenty of wick. I was reading some of the comments in chat about how I could have done that wick better, maybe use stainless steel mesh, that kind of thing. And I'm sure that's right. I just wanted to do it the way that it was intended to start with, and not overcomplicate it, just to show that you can make it work. And it works. It wicks. It's going okay. And for 13 quid, I think that doesn't really prohibit anybody.
It's a great price.
You'll more than get your money back on the price of a couple of atomizers, wouldn't you?
Well, what's a decent atomizer now? £6.50.
Exactly. So 2 atomizers, and you've got more than that, the capability for more than that in the rebuildable. So cost is not a big barrier. I have to say that by comparison to the Bully, it's not in the same ballpark quality wise. The little screw terminals and stuff I don't think are going to last as long as they do on the Bully, but it's a good sort of entry level rebuildable. I think I don't see an issue with it. So
well, the thing is, the screws, they're very small heads on them, aren't they? So if you haven't got the right tools, which reminds me, I didn't have the tools. If anybody has got an Aldi near him, £8. It's full of all the really small.
There you go.
Heads you'll need.
Well, I'm fortunate.
I'm
fortunate in another one of my passions in life is collecting multi-tools, and I've got a specialist electrical Leatherman here. So.
Well, I used to have all those silver small ones, but I couldn't find them to save my life, and somebody told me they were in Aldi. So if you've got one and you need some,
this one's even got all the different wire gauges, American wire gauges. Down the side, but yeah, I mean, I kept that deliberately simple, and I thought it served to demonstrate the principle. I caveated that video quite a bit, as you saw. I don't claim to be proficient or even particularly competent at winding coils at this stage. But coming up next week, I'm going to be looking at something called the steam machine. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that one. I picked it up at
I've seen it. I've seen the videos and stuff.
And until Friday, I was using this exclusively, to be honest with you. I'm not going to go into it too much now, but let's just say that it takes the concept we just saw and takes it to the next sort of step on. I think it's the idea we just saw in that VT developed and evolved a bit, and then I'm going to work up towards the sort of Genesis style atomizers as well, which I'm not going to comment on now because it will invalidate everything between now and when I cover it.
I mean, there's so many different ideas coming out with these rebuildables now. You know, it's like you say, I've been tempted to get into these, and I think now's possibly the time for me. After trying these two, as I'll call them, a gateway product, you know, for the price they are.
I think
you can
they
afford
are.
to try
Yeah.
one, can't you?
You know what? We might be being a bit. I called it entry level. You called it gateway. I think maybe, possibly, we're being a little bit unkind because I think they're perfectly legitimate atomizers. You know, I mean, I'd certainly recommend to anybody that wanted to try, you know, rebuildables to find out whether that it's an idea you can live with. To try one of these cheap ones first, I'd definitely recommend that. You don't want to go and spend the best part of £100 on something and find that it's not for you. Although it has to be said, most of the sort of minor run, small run rebuildables out there do seem to hold their value quite well. But, you know, why part with the cash? You know, I think that these things from Healthy Vape are great to explore the concept a bit. And then maybe move on to the more refined models. I don't know.
I suppose you're right, because, you know, I've had this now for 3 weeks, maybe even longer, 4 weeks, a month or so, and I've used it every night.
Right. Okay. Right. So it's kind of taken over for you then.
Yeah. So I suppose we could be, you know, saying it wrongly there by saying it's a gateway, but it's a perfectly good piece of kit. And it works. Obviously, I've been using it for a month, and I'll continue using it, and it looks great on the Touchwood Mini as well.
It does look good on the Touchwood Mini, I have to say, yes. I dare say it looks good on the BOSQ as well.
Yeah, it might look a bit small actually on that, because that BOSQ's a lot bigger.
It is a big machine, yes. It's not a lightweight, that's for sure. Although it's very light. There's hardly any weight in it at all because of the shape of it. Obviously, the thickest section is drilled out for the battery. Yeah. So it's actually very light. Compared to something like the Silver Bullet, it's half the weight. You what, sorry, mate?
Until you put the battery in. It's light until you put the battery.
Even with the battery in, you know, it's... I'd say it's about half the weight of the Pravari.
Really?
Yeah, really. It feels like balsa, looks like walnut.
And it is light. Cause
it is surprisingly light. Even compared to the Touchwood, it seems light. So, but anyway, we digress. This little series of videos I'm going to do then, I'm going to do at least 3 and maybe a 4th one. And then the idea is I'll probably stick them on YouTube and embed them around the place, including on the Vapor Trail site. But I'll be broadcasting them as part of Dave's Tackle Box first. I'm filming them as I go, so I've not yet filmed the Steam Machine one. I've made 1 coil for it, and that was a breeze, frankly. It was actually easier than that Chinese thing, I would say. I'm quite looking forward to doing it, to be honest with you. I think it'll be good. So
the funny thing is with these, when you come to building the wicks and coils, I mean, I've done about 4 or 5 on this now, and the first one took me about 3 minutes. The second one took me 15 minutes, which was on video, and if anybody watched the show, they'll remember. He was probably all asleep by the end of the VT. And ever since that one, it's been 3 minutes again. I don't know what went wrong that day, but it happens. But they're so simple. Well, these ones anyway. I look forward to getting one of these ones that's a little bit more complex to see if I can manage it, cope with it.
Well, to be honest, I don't think they get much more complex. I mean, the Genesis style is a different sort of concept, but actually I find the coils easier to make than those things. It's a lot less fiddly. There's a longer process because like oxidising the wick and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But it's definitely not more complex. And what I'm finding is with the more expensive ones, the connections are a little bit better. I find it easier, to be honest with you. That's been my experience so far. I might pick up a couple more as I go along to see if that theory holds good.
Do you know one thing I like about this type of thing, Dave? You know, like a lot of people will make a coil when they're ready to do it.
Yeah.
Or when it needs replacing. I've actually stocked up on a few, and it's weird. It reminded me going back to my rolly days of smoking. And you used to roll up about 10 for the day or something.
Right, you're gonna
love minutes in.
You're gonna love the wire mesh wicks then.
Yeah,
the steel
you
mesh.
Get them all stocked up and ready, can't you?
Yeah, because you actually have to roll them. It's like rolling rolling an e-cig. You don't roll e-cigs. You know what I meant. Like,
so
it's like the old
felt a bit like a comfort thing, you know. Right, I'll make 5 and then I'm good.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Like you'd make 10 rollies and you're good. It was weird. It reminded me when I was doing it. Thought I'd bring that up.
Right. Well, Dougie, we've just about run out of time. So thank you for joining me again. Will you come back next week and tell me what you think of my second video, my second installment? Who knows? Maybe you'll have a Genesis by then as well. We'll see how that goes.
I'm still saving up for the knees, mate.
Thank you for joining me.
No worries.
If I don't speak to you before, I'll speak to you next week.
Say bye to everybody. One thing?
Yeah.
We've got Marco Van Basten in chat. Well done on that video, the Perfect Day video, mate. Really enjoyed that. That's it.
And so say all of us. Yeah, well done. Okay. Catch you later, Dougie.
No problem.
Bye.
See you later.
Right, and that pretty much brings us to the end of the show. I mean, hasn't it flown? I knew it would, but we did manage to get it all in. I was a bit worried we wouldn't have time to fit Dougie in there at the end, but we did, and it wouldn't be the same without Dougie. So I hope you enjoyed tonight's show. Just a last plug for Vape Fest Ireland next Saturday. It's from 11 AM till late, and next time I see you, I'll be telling you about it. So it's good night from him and good night from me. Bye.
Cloud9 Vaping, sponsors of Dave's Tackle Box.